Welcome to 2018 Gardening at Farmer Brown's Paradise, Episode 2. Today we're going to be planting some tomatoes. The first thing you want to do is check your bucket and make sure it's wicking. Now you can see the top feels and looks just dry and crumbly, and that is normal. That's the way it's going to look. But as you stick your finger down in there, when you get to the tip of your finger, you should be feeling some moisture. If you do, then it's wicking and it's ready to go. So I'm going to pull some out here, make my hole. You can even look, see how much darker it is right down there. It's definitely moist. It's perfect. Now I like to add a teaspoon of soluble mycorrhizae in the bottom of the hole. I'm going to take my little collar off. Don't need it anymore. Put it in the hole. There's some of my dirt up around it. I'm going to go ahead and stake this one. This is still pretty strong, but I'm going to give it a stake. I will take the stakes off once they reach, once they're tall enough to actually attach to our trellis here. Now, I like to companion plant with my tomatoes, and I'll talk about that in just a minute when I show you the whole thing, the different things I'm using. But this is some thyme. It smells so good. And I'm going to put it there in the front of my bucket. Okay, you do need to water it in now, top watering. Give it a good drink. And now for the mulch. I like to use easy straw with tack in it. The tack is kind of like a little bonding agent that helps it to stick together a little bit, compact. It doesn't fly away once it's wet. Just stays down in there. You want to make sure that you don't see any soil. Tomatoes are notorious for getting soil-borne funguses, so we want to make sure it's completely covered. This is a little bit small, this plant, and this isn't touching yet, but eventually when this gets bigger, I'll pinch off the bottom leaves, and I'll keep doing that. I keep mine up to about 16-18 inches on some of them, certainly with the indeterminates. Planted a couple of new companion plants this year with my tomatoes. I love doing companion plants. This year I've added petunias, and not only are they beautiful and flower and draw the honeybees and the predatory wasps, all those good things, but they do repel other things too. And specifically for tomatoes, they're supposed to repel tomato worms. They also repel leafhoppers, asparagus beetles, certain types of aphids, and the Mexican bean beetle. So they're also very good to put with beans and peppers. And then of course always the marigolds. I don't know whether you know it, but marigolds actually enhance the growth of certain plants like basil and broccoli, cucumbers, eggplant, kale, squash, and tomatoes. Marigolds are also very good for melons because they deter beetles. I think they deter a lot of things because they are a little stinky. And the other thing I put this year that was different, well, I did marigolds last year, but another different thing was thyme. And I love that herb. Put 3 different kinds in there. It's credited with repelling cabbage worms, corn earworms, tomato hornworms, and flea beetles. And of course, when it flowers, it also attracts the honeybees and the beneficial predator insects. And then I always have at least one bucket that has some nasturtiums that I've grown from seed in them. I do love nasturtiums. They work with any plant in the garden. Well, I have to say something here about my tomato plants. For indeterminate tomato plants, the recommendation is to go a minimum of 7 gallons. Well, I don't have 7-gallon buckets. Didn't have them the last year either, or the year before that. So I have 5s. So I'm pushing the envelope a little bit. I'm using 5 gallons. In addition to that, I got 9 on a gutter, which the recommendation is around 6 or 7. The reason for the spread is to keep airflow, but I keep my tomatoes pruned up, and I also prune the suckers off of, the majority of the suckers off the indeterminates. Not the determinants, but the indeterminates. Additionally, I mean, I've never done a comparison between a 5-gallon bucket and something larger with a tomato on a gutter, but I know that mine did really well last year, so I didn't want to purchase bigger buckets. I don't want to use bags right now, so everything we have out here are buckets, and so I didn't want to go to the expense of getting bigger buckets. So I'm going again with them on the rail, 9 5-gallon buckets on the rail. Shoot me. Well, they're planted, and my tired's tired. Y'all remember, bye. Have a good one.